Chapter 1: Pepperoni and the End of the World.
Joe Bickerton had three great loves in life: lukewarm pizza, Top Gear reruns, and the sweet fleeting joy of finishing a shift without getting yelled at by Gary. Today, he was 0 for 3. The clock on race. The sausage roll, a rusted bicycle held together by duct tape and sheer stubbornness, ticked past 7:30 p.m. as Joe wheezed up the cobbled driveway of 42 Hale Road. Mrs. Pritchard's house loomed ahead, a relic of 1970s British architecture with mustard yellow siding and a garden overrun by ceramic gnomes. One gnome, missing an eye and holding a fishing rod, seemed to judge him as he skidded to a halt. "You're not my supervisor," Joe muttered, adjusting his pizza bag. The Hawaiian apocalypse in his thermal carrier was already a lost cause. Pineapple chunks had fused to the lid like edible cement, and the jalapenos had migrated to form a molten lake in the center. Mrs. Pritchard's orders were always unhinged. Last week she'd requested a meat lover's surprise with extra anchovies and a side of pickled onions. Joe had nightmares about it for days. He rang the doorbell, which emitted a sound like a deflating accordion. "Delivery!" he called, wiping sweat from his brow. The late September chill did nothing to curb the heat radiating off his pizza-stained polo shirt. "Come on, Mrs. P. I've got a date with a microwave lasagna and Antiques Roadshow." No answer. Joe squinted through the frosted glass. A shadow lurched into view, accompanied by a wet, guttural groan. "All right, keep your dentures on," he said, holding up the box. "Just sign here and I'll—" The door creaked open. Mrs. Pritchard stood in the doorway, or at least most of her did. Her floral house dress was torn, her slippers mismatched, and her face, normally the color of undercooked pastry, had taken on a vibrant mouldy blue hue. A chunk of her neck was missing, revealing something glistening and black underneath, like congealed gravy. Joe blinked. Did the jalapenos finally kick in? She snarled, a rope of black drool splattering her home sweet home doormat. "Right," Joe said, backing away slowly. Note to self: ranch dressing does not cure whatever this is. Mrs. Pritchard lunged. Joe yelped, hurling the pizza box like a frisbee. It smacked her square in the face, spraying pineapple across the gnomes. She tore into the box with a noise like a blender full of cutlery, giving him just enough time to vault onto the sausage roll. "You'll regret the pineapple," he shouted, pedaling furiously. "It's a war crime in Italy." But Mrs. Pritchard wasn't listening. Neither was the postman, shambling down the street with his intestines trailing behind him like a gruesome scarf. Or the vicar from St. Mary's, who was gnawing on a parking meter with unsettling enthusiasm. "Oh, come on," Joe groaned. "I didn't even get a tip." His phone buzzed. He fished it out, nearly swerving into a bin. "Gary, where the hell are you? Order for 16 High Street. No pineapple. They specified no pineapple or we riot." Joe hit voice memo, panting. "Gary, mate, I'd love to debate pizza ethics, but Aylesbury's gone full Love Island. Everyone's getting bitten and not in the fun way. A zombie in a keep calm and eat quiche." Apron lurched into his path. Joe swerved, clipping its elbow with his handlebar. "Also, I'm pretty sure I started the apocalypse, so maybe cancel the 4 p.m. shift." He hung up, thighs burning as he careened into the town square. The once quaint cobblestone streets were now a carnival of chaos. Overturned market stalls, abandoned prams, and a trio of zombies arguing over a lone Greg sausage roll. "Priorities," Joe muttered. Ahead, the flickering neon sign of Aylesbury Pizza Palace beckoned like a greasy oasis. Gary's Ford Fiesta, parked diagonally across 2 spaces as always, was now crumpled against a lamppost, its windshield spiderwebbed with cracks. Joe skidded into the parking lot, nearly tripping over Gary's prized Employee of the Month plaque, which to everyone's shock, Gary had never actually won. The shop's glass door hung askew. bells still jingling merrily. "Gary!" Joe called, stepping inside. "We've got a code red, and by red I mean blood." The words died in his throat. Gary stood behind the counter, or rather, what was left of him. His Kiss the Chef apron was now Kiss the Reaper, drenched in something that looked suspiciously like the special marinara he had been experimenting with. His head lolled at a jaunty 90-degree angle, milky eyes fixed on Joe. "Oh," Joe said weakly. "You, finally nailed the gluten-free crust, huh?" Gary growled, lunging across the counter. His foot caught the mopping bucket, sending him face first into a tower of takeout menus. Joe stared. Note to self: zombies. Terrible at standing. Good to know. He edged toward the kitchen, grabbing the first weapon he saw, a pizza cutter still crusted with yesterday's pepperoni. "Right," he said, backing toward the door. "Time to deliver myself a survival story." Gary writhed on the floor, snarling as Joe snagged a lukewarm margarita and a can of Fanta from the fridge. "Cheers, mate," Joe said, saluting him with the soda. "If I die, tell everyone I hated pineapple too." He kicked the door open and froze. The parking lot was now swarming. Zombies clustered around Gary's car, peeling chunks of upholstery like rabid seagulls. One, wearing a vote leave cap, turned and moaned. "Brilliant," Joe muttered. "Even the undead are political." He ducked behind a dumpster, Fanta wedged under his arm, pizza balanced on his head. His phone buzzed again. "Peter. Dude, you alive?" Joe typed one-handed. Define alive. "Peter. Check the dark web. Something's happening. Black goo vaccines. It's the zombie apocalypse." Joe snorted. "No shit." "Peter, get to my place. I've got weapons and a bunker and nachos." Joe peeked around the dumpster. The horde was thickening, drawn by the clatter of Gary dragging himself across the parking lot. "Right," Joe whispered, tightening his grip on the pizza cutter. "Survival plan, step 1, don't die. Step 2, find better friends." He lobbed the margarita into the crowd. The zombies turned, descending on it like pigeons on a chip. "Bon appetit, you wankers," Joe muttered, sprinting to the sausage roll. He pedaled harder than he'd ever pedaled in his life, the wind whipping tears from his eyes. Past the butcher shop, now eerily quiet. Past the charity thrift store, a zombie in a sequined dress waved listlessly. Past Sue's pub, the White Hart, its windows dark. For a split second, he considered stopping. Sue would know what to do. Sue always knew what to do. But then he pictured her rolling her eyes, cricket bat in hand. "You brought the apocalypse to my pub, Joe." Classic. Number Peter first. Then Sue. Then, well, hopefully, nachos. As he veered onto the A41, a helicopter thundered overhead. Joe glanced up, half expecting rescue or at least a strongly worded leaflet about staying indoors. Instead, a voice boomed from a loudspeaker. "Remain calm. This is a controlled outbreak. Quarantine protocols are in effect." "Controlled!" Joe shouted, nearly swerving into a ditch. "That's not a word, you prats!" The helicopter peeled away, leaving him alone with the growl of his bike chain and the distant screams of his hometown. Somewhere behind him, Mrs. Pritchard's gnomes watched, silent and smug. Chapter 2. Geek versus Greek. Salad. Joe's thighs were screaming. The sausage roll. Its rusted chain groaned like a dying accordion as he pedaled past the Welcome to Aylesbury sign, now defaced with what he hoped was ketchup, and toward Peter's mansion on the outskirts of town. The road uphill felt like a sore trap designed specifically for his cardio. "Note to self," he wheezed, swerving around an abandoned Tesco delivery van. "If I survive this, buy a car, or a hamster wheel. Anything." Peter's house came into view. A sprawling modern monstrosity locals called the Spaceship. partly for its glass and steel curves, partly because Peter's late tech mogul dad had once tried to launch a Wi-Fi satellite from the roof. Tonight it was lit up like Blackpool illuminations, with strobe lights pulsing in the windows, and Queen's Another One Bites the Dust blasting at full volume. Joe skidded to a halt at the wrought iron gates. A security camera swiveled toward him. "Oi, Gollum!" Joe shouted. "Let me in before I become a Happy Meal." The camera beeped. A speaker crackled. Peter's voice, tinny and gleeful. "What's the password?" "Password!" Joe glanced over his shoulder. A zombie in a tracksuit. "Did that used to be my gym teacher?" Shambled toward the gate. "How about I'll shove your Xbox into the river?" "Incorrect. Hint, it's the thing you mocked me for stockpiling in 2020. "Toilet paper!" The gates hissed open. "Nailed it!" Joe biked up the driveway, nearly colliding with a garden gnome holding a sign. Zombie free zone, probably. The front door burst open before he could knock. Peter stood in the doorway, grinning like a kid on Red Bull. He wore a Star Wars onesie, goggles perched on his forehead, and a utility belt stocked with what looked like Nerf darts and USB drives. Behind him, the foyer resembled a Mythbusters fever dream. Drones hovered near the ceiling, shelves overflowed with duct-taped contraptions, and a life-sized cutout of Sigourney Weaver from Aliens stood guard by the stairs. "Dude!" Peter pulled Joe inside and slammed the door. "You're alive, and only like 30% biteable." "Cheers," Joe said, collapsing onto a beanbag shaped like a stormtrooper helmet. "Mind explaining why you've turned your house into a Call of Duty loot crate?" Peter paced, buzzing with adrenaline. "Okay, remember when I told you the COVID boosters were sketchy? Turns out they were literally sketchy, like hiding sketchy nanobot goo sketchy. I found the specs on the dark web last week. Some lab called it Project Lazarus. Basically, programmable black sludge that reanimates corpses. It's like Tinder, but for necrophiliacs." Joe stared. "You've really got to work on your analogies." "Point is, the goo's in the water supply now. Probably spread through the booster shots. And guess who's been chugging tap water like it's Ribena?" Peter gestured wildly to the window, where the tracksuit zombie was now licking the gate. Joe pinched the bridge of his nose. "So, this is my fault for not going gluten-free." "No, this is humanity's fault, for trusting a government that can't even fix potholes." Peter tossed him a neon green squirt gun. "Here, holy water. Well, technically, Evian mixed with Sriracha, but it's all we've got." "We?" A mechanical growl echoed from the hallway. Joe turned as a Roomba vacuum rolled into the room, towing a tiny trailer stacked with crossbow bolts. "Meet Kevin," Peter said, patting the Roomba. "He's on sentry duty. Also, he's vegan." "Right," Joe said slowly. "So your apocalypse plan is a vacuum and a water pistol." "Oh, ye of little faith." Peter grabbed Joe's arm and dragged him into the basement. "Behold, the arsenal." Joe's jaw dropped. The room was a mad scientist garage sale. Racks of homemade weapons lined the walls, a flamethrower shaped like a lightsaber, the Crispinator, a crossbow loaded with sauce packets, splatterpult, and a trebuchet the size of a coffee table labeled Yeet Fleet. In the corner, a 3D printer whirred, churning out plastic garden gnomes with chainsaw arms. "I may have overprepared," Peter admitted. "You think?" Joe picked up a mace welded from cutlery. "Why does this spoon say, property of Nando's?" "Focus." Peter tossed him a laptop open to a dark web forum. The screen glowed with headlines. "Black goo leak confirmed." And Saxbat Phase 1 test in Aylesbury. The goo's remote controlled. Someone's piloting these zombies. And guess where the signal's coming from? Joe squinted. The local Argos. "Yes! Well, the bunker under the Argos. Some tech bro named Sir Reginald Crumb owns it. He's basically Elon Musk if Elon Musk ate nothing but Haribo and spite." Peter pulled up a photo of Crumb, a balding man in a turtleneck scowling at a salad. He's been dumping the goo into the water tower. We shut him down. We shut off the zombies. Joe blinked. So, we're fighting a billionaire who lives under Argos. Cool. Normal Tuesday. First, we rescue Sue, Peter said, strapping on his utility belt. Joe froze. Sue? Why Sue? Because A, she's our friend, B, she's at the pub, and C, you've been crushing on her since year 2 when she shared her jammy Dodgers. I have not. Dude, you wrote a poem about her in GCSE English. Roses are red, pizza is cheesy, please don't date Darren, he's kind of a sleazy. Joe's face burned. That was a metaphor. And this, Peter handed him a walkie-talkie shaped like a slice of pizza, is a communication device. Let's go. Hold on, Joe blocked the door. You want to march into a zombie horde with a source gun? No, I want to march in with style. Peter tossed him a helmet adorned with GoPro cameras and rubber chicken horns. Also, I've got a Zamboni. A what? In the driveway, Peter's Zamboni turned out to be a ride-on lawnmower welded to a shopping trolley with garden shears duct taped to the front. Hop in, Peter revved the engine, which coughed out a plume of smoke. It's got a top speed of 12 miles per hour and a cup holder. Joe hesitated, eyeing the growing crowd of zombies at the gate. The tracksuit zombie had been joined by a woman in a bathrobe and a postman missing an arm. Fine, Joe muttered, climbing into the trolley. But if I die, I'm haunting you, and I'm turning all your cereal soggy. Peter hit the gas. The Zamboni lurched forward, shears sparking against the pavement. Activate distraction protocol, Peter yelled. Music boomed from the Zamboni's speakers, ABBA's Dancing Queen. The zombies turned in unison, moaning along off-key. Brilliant, Peter shouted. They hate ABBA. No, you hate ABBA. Joe ducked as a zombie in a Mamma Mia t-shirt hurled a garden gnome at them. They careened onto the main road, the Zamboni fishtailing wildly. Peter whooped, firing sauce packets from the splatterpult. A zombie cyclist swerved into a hedge, blinded by barbecue glaze. Eat sauce, loser, Peter cheered. Joe clung to the trolley's edge, pizza cutter in hand. Why do you even have a splatterpult? For the zombie apocalypse. You built it before the apocalypse. I like to be proactive. A zombie lunged from a bus stop. Joe jabbed it with the pizza cutter, recoiling as black goo spurted onto his shoe. Gross! It's like custard from hell. Aim for the head, Peter yelled, swerving around a crashed ice cream truck. I'm trying, but your driving's worse than your coding. They skidded into the town square, now a war zone of overturned bins and flickering streetlights. The White Hart pub stood in the distance, its windows boarded, neon sign cracked but still buzzing. The White Hart. Almost there, Peter said. A roar echoed behind them. Joe turned. A horde of zombies spilled from a side street, led by a massive figure in a Kiss the Chef apron. Oh, you've got to be joking, Joe groaned. Gary, now twice his original size and oozing black sludge from every pore, charged the Zamboni. Floor it, Joe screamed. Peter yanked the steering wheel. The Zamboni clipped a curb, launching into the air like a startled cow. For one glorious second, Joe felt weightless. Then they crashed onto the pub's patio, scattering zombie drinkers like bowling pins. The Zamboni sputtered and died. Perfect landing, Peter said, dusting off his onesie. Joe crawled out of the trolley, legs shaking. Remind me to never let you drive again. A snarl cut him off. Gary loomed over them, bits of the Zamboni's bumper stuck in his teeth. Peter fumbled with his utility belt. Source grenade, nope. Wi-Fi jammer, nope. Ah! He pulled out a small remote. Self-destruct mode. Wait, what? Peter hit a button. The Zamboni beeped twice, then exploded in a fireball of lawnmower parts and shredded Tesco bags. Joe hit the ground as shrapnel peppered the patio. When the smoke cleared, Gary was gone. reduced to a charred smear and a single flip-flop. Yes! Peter punched the air. Take that, you gluten-free loser! Joe gaped. You blew up the Zamboni? It was expendable. You named it. A window shattered above them. They looked up. Sue leaned out of the pub's first-floor window, cricket bat in hand. Her auburn hair was tied back, her leather jacket splattered with black goo, and her glare could have melted steel. You two were rocks, she shouted. Took you long enough. Joe's heart did a backflip. God, she's terrifying. Peter cupped his hands around his mouth. We brought snacks. You brought fire. Same thing. Sue rolled her eyes. Get inside. And hurry. I've got a pint with your names on it, and not the fun kind. As they scrambled toward the pub's side entrance, Joe glanced back at the smouldering Zamboni. Hey, Peter. Yeah? Thanks for all this. Peter grinned. Any time, but you're buying the next round. Overhead, the helicopter buzzed again, its spotlight sweeping the streets. Remain calm, the loudspeaker droned. Quarantine is for your safety. Joe snorted. Safety, right. He followed Peter inside, pizza cutter in hand, and prayed Sue's pint wasn't literal.
Chapter 3, Last Orders at the White Hart.
The pub smelled of stale beer, desperation, and the distinct tang of zombie goo. Sue's pint turned out to be a bucket of mop water she'd thrown at Joe and Peter the second they stumbled inside. You're tracking filth on my floors, she snapped, jabbing her cricket bat at their shoes. And what the hell is that? She pointed to Peter's rubber chicken helmet. Safety first, Peter said, adjusting the googly eyes glued to the sides. Also, fashion. Joe wrung out his pizza-stained shirt. Lovely to see you too, Sue. How's the apocalypse treating you? Better than it's treating you. She nodded to the bar, where a row of zombies slumped on stools, their heads duct-taped to the counter. One wore a party hat. Had to get creative with the regulars. The White Hart was a disaster zone. Tables were overturned to form barricades, dartboards bristled with steak knives, and the jukebox played I Will Survive on a loop, its volume knob broken off. Behind the bar, Sue had scrawled No Service, or Hope, in lipstick on the mirror. Peter whistled. Cozy. You redecorate. Shut it, Sue said, tossing Joe a dish towel. You two got a plan, or are you just here to mooch crisps? Plan, Joe said. Peter's plan was a Zamboni and a prayer. Hey, the Zamboni worked, Peter protested. It exploded. Tactically exploded. Sue massaged her temples. Right, let's start over. Why are the zombies here? And why does that one... She pointed to a zombie in a Brexit means Brexit jumper gnawing on a pool cue. Keep shouting sovereignty. Peter launched into a rapid-fire explanation. Nanobots, Black Goo, Sir Reginald Crumb, and the Argos bunker. Sue listened, arms crossed, until he mentioned the water supply. The water! She stalked to the bar sink and yanked the tap. A thick, oily liquid gurgled out. This what you're on about? The sludge pooled in the sink, shimmering like molten licorice. Joe poked it with a beer mat. Yep, that's the goo. Brilliant, so the whole town's poisoned. Sue kicked the tap shut. Including me. Joe froze. What? She rolled up her sleeve, revealing thin black veins creeping up her forearm. Drank a cuppa this morning. Tasted like battery acid. Now I've got this. Peter pulled a UV flashlight from his belt. Let me see. The veins glowed neon green under the light. Whoa, it's kind of pretty. Sue smacked the flashlight away. Focus, you Burke. Am I turning into one of them or not? Dunno, Peter said. But your eyes aren't milky and you're not, chewing us. Yet, Joe muttered. Sue glared. Right. So, we shut down this crumb tosser, stop the goo, and I magically get better. Basically, Peter said. Fantastic, let's go. She grabbed a fire axe from behind the bar. Wait, Now? Joe said. Got a better idea? Sue nodded to the boarded-up windows. A chorus of moans swelled outside. They're getting smarter. Earlier one tried to unlock your cash now with a stolen crowbar. Peter peeked through a crack in the boards. He's not wrong. That one's got a traffic warden badge. Never trust a man in high vis. Joe slumped onto a stool. Can't we just wait for the government? As if on cue, the helicopter buzzed overhead. Loudspeaker blaring. Remain indoors. Quarantine is mandatory. Non-compliance will be met with pacification. Pacification, Sue said flatly. That's what my ex called his Tinder profile. A thunderous bang shook the door. The zombies outside redoubled their efforts, clawing at the wood. Plan, Sue said, tossing Joe a bottle of whiskey. Now. Peter unrolled a blueprint on the bar. Crumb's bunker's under Argos. We need to get there, hack his mainframe, and shut off the goo. Easy. Easy? Joe said. Argos is miles away, through Zombie Central. Which is why we'll take the sewers. Peter tapped the blueprint. They run right under the high street. Pop up, kick Crumb's ass, save the day. Boom. Sewers, Sue repeated. You want us to wade through actual shit to save the world. Technically, it's Aylesbury's shit. Very patriotic. Another bang. The door splintered. A zombie's arm thrust through, fingers grasping. Fine, Sue said. But if I die, I'm haunting both of you. Literally. The sewers weren't technically sewers. They're storm drains, Peter said cheerfully, swinging a torch. Only mostly rat pee. Joe gagged. The tunnel reeked of damp and despair. Why are you like this? Genetics, Sue said, forging ahead. Her fire axe glinted in the torchlight. Keep up, slowpokes. They navigated the labyrinth, dodging puddles of suspicious goo and the occasional shopping trolley. Peter's UV flashlight revealed glowing green handprints on the walls. Crumb's goo delivery route, he said. Follow the slime. Poetry, Joe muttered. After an eternity of sludge and Steve's increasingly unhinged trivia, did you know rats can't vomit? They reached a ladder leading up to a manhole. This is it, Peter said. Argos car park. Ready to be heroes. Ready to shower, Sue said. They climbed. Joe pushed the manhole cover aside, peering out. The car park was eerily quiet, littered with abandoned cars and a single zombie trapped in a mobility scooter, circling endlessly. Distract him, Sue whispered. Peter lobbed a sauce packet. It hit the zombie's head, exploding in a burst of BBQ glaze. The zombie paused, licked its face, then resumed circling. Sauce, 1. Zombies, 0, Peter said. They crept toward the Argos entrance, glass doors shattered. Everything must go. Signs still hanging. Inside the store was a ghost town of empty shelves and toppled display TVs. Where's the bunker? Sue said. Staff room. Peter pointed to a employees-only door. There's a hidden lift. Crumb's too cheap to build a real lair. The staff room was a time capsule of 2012. Faded, keep calm and carry on. Posters, a kettle crusted with lime scale, and a photo of the Argos Christmas party featuring a man in a reindeer onesie. Found the lift, Joe said, prying open a maintenance hatch. Behind it, a keypad glowed. Peter cracked his knuckles. Time to hack the planet. Password's probably password, Sue said. Peter typed *PASSWORD*. Access denied. Worth a shot. Joe squinted at the Christmas party photo. Hey, that's Crumb. The man in the reindeer onesie was indeed Sir Reginald, scowling at a mince pie. Check the date, Sue said. December 2012. What's significant about that? Peter Googled on his phone. Mayan Apocalypse. One Direction's first tour. Think, Sue said. Crumb's a narcissist. Password's something personal. Joe snapped his fingers. The photo! Look at his mug. It says world's okayest boss. Peter typed world's okayest boss. Access denied. Shocker, Sue said. Joe sighed. What do rich wankers love more than themselves? Tax evasion, Sue said. Peter typed asterisk TAX underscore HAVEN asterisk. Access granted. The floor shuddered. A panel slid open, revealing a gleaming elevator. Nailed it, Peter said. The doors closed. Muzak played Never Gonna Give You Up. He's rickrolling us, Joe said. Psychopath, Sue muttered. The elevator descended. When the doors opened, they faced a sterile white corridor lined with security cameras. Welcome to the lair, Peter whispered. They crept forward. A door at the end bore a plaque. Sir Reginald Crumb, Innovation Overload. Charming, Sue said. Joe eased the door open. The room beyond was a Silicon Valley parody. Beanbags, a ping-pong table, and a wall of monitors showing zombie hordes worldwide. At the far end, Sir Reginald Crumb sat in a gaming chair, typing furiously. You're late, Crumb said without turning. I expected you, hours ago. Peter aimed his source gun. Step away from the goo, Elon Mush. Crumb spun, revealing a face like a slapped ham. You think you've won? The goo is everywhere. Phase 1 was a test. Phase 2 is global renewal. Renewal, Joe said. Mate, you've turned Aylesbury into a Gears of War LARP. Crumb slammed a button. Alarms blared. You'll never stop progress! The floor shook. Zombies in lab coats shambled from hidden doors. Sue? Joe said, backing up. Yeah? Run.
Chapter 4. Blood, Sweat, and Error. Messages.
The zombies weren't like the others. They moved faster. Organized. Lab coats flapping, they fanned out in a semicircle, blocking every exit. Their eyes glowed faintly green, and their jaws hung slack, wires and circuitry protruding from their necks like cybernetic parasites. Oh, you've got to be kidding me, Sue hissed, backing toward the door. They're IT zombies. Crumb smirked, fingers dancing over a holographic keyboard. Phase 2 prototypes. Programmable. Upgradable. Think of them as iOS 27, Undead Edition. You're a madman, Joe spat. I'm a visionary, Crumb snapped. The world was bloated, inefficient, weak. Now it'll run on optimized, obedient labor. No sick days, no unions. Just progress. Peter fired a source packet at the nearest zombie. It splattered against its forehead, but the creature didn't flinch. Guys? They're not distracted. Plan B! Sue swung her fire axe at a zombie's arm. The blade sparked against metal bone. What's Plan B? Running! Joe grabbed her sleeve, yanking her toward the door. Now! They bolted into the corridor, the horde close behind. Crumb's laughter echoed over the intercom. You can't outrun evolution. The fluorescent lights flickered. Alarms wailed. Joe's lungs burned as they skidded around corners, the zombies' footsteps pounding like a drumline. There! Peter pointed to a server room door. In here! They slammed the door shut, Peter jamming it with a fire extinguisher. The zombies rattled the handle, hissing. Sue slumped against a wall, clutching her infected arm. The black veins had spread to her shoulder, pulsing faintly. I'm slowing down, she muttered. You two should go. Not a chance, Joe said, kneeling beside her. Peter rifled through his utility belt. I've got USB drives, a protein bar, and glitter bombs. Useless. Think! Joe snapped. Crumb said they're programmable. Can't you hack them? Peter's eyes lit up. The mainframe! If I can access Crumb's system, maybe I can shut them down. He pointed to a terminal in the corner. Cover me. Joe grabbed a keyboard. With what? A strongly worded email? The door shuddered. The fire extinguisher groaned. Sue shoved Joe toward the terminal. Go, I'll hold them off. Sue, go. Joe hesitated, then sprinted to help Peter. Behind them, Sue braced herself against the door, axe raised. Peter plugged a USB drive into the terminal. Lines of code scrolled. Crumb's system is locked behind a firewall. I need a password. You've got one job, Joe said. The door burst open. Sue swung, cleaving a zombie's head from its shoulders. Black goo sprayed the walls. Hurry! She roared. Peter typed furiously. It's asking for a biometric scan. Of what? A living human sample. Joe froze. The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Sue kicked a zombie back. Do it. What? Joe said. Scan me. She held up her infected arm. The goo's in my blood. Maybe it'll trick the system. Or set off a self-destruct, Peter said. Do it. Joe met her gaze. Fear flickered behind her steel, but she nodded. Peter grabbed her wrist, pressing her palm to the scanner. The terminal beeped. Analyzing. The zombies froze. Welcome, admin. The server room lights dimmed. A hologram flickered to life. A global map. Cities blinking red. Phase 2. 98% complete. We're in, Peter said. Shut it down, Sue said. Peter typed. Trying, but the system's fighting me. It's like alive. The zombies twitched. One tilted its head, glowing eyes locking on Joe. Pete? Almost. Got it. The terminal screen flashed red. Error. Override required. What's that mean? Joe said. It needs a manual shutdown. Peter pointed to a hatch in the ceiling. There's a server hub upstairs. Pull the plug and the whole system crashes. The zombies lunged. Go! Sue shoved Joe toward a ladder. I'll buy you time. No, you go. I'm infected, Joe. You think I'm making it out of here? Her voice cracked. Just go. The axe trembled in her hands. Joe's chest tightened. Peter grabbed his arm. Now, Joe. He climbed. The server hub was a cavern of blinking machines and tangled wires. Joe stumbled through the maze, following Peter's shouted directions over the walkie-talkie. Follow the red cables! You're looking for a black lever. Ow! Bloody zombie bit my USB drive. Joe found the lever. It was labeled Emergency Purge in Comic Sans. Pull it! Peter yelled. Joe hesitated. What happens to you? The system will crash. Zombies go offline. Probably. Probably. Just do it. Joe gripped the lever. Below, he heard Sue's roar, the sickening crunch of metal on bone. He pulled. The lights died. A deafening hum shook the bunker. Machines sparked, screens exploding in showers of glass. Somewhere, Crumbs screamed. Joe staggered back. Pete! Sue! Silence. Then, Joe! He followed Peter's voice to the edge of the platform. Below, the server room was a graveyard of motionless zombies. Sue lay slumped against the wall, axe still in hand. Sue! Joe scrambled down the ladder. She was alive. Barely. Her breath came in shallow rasps, the black veins now creeping up her neck. Told you. To go, she whispered. Shut up, Joe said, cradling her head. You're not dying in an Argos. Peter limped over, clutching a bleeding shoulder. Crumb's gone, ran like a rat. But the system's dead. Zombies should be offline. Should be, Joe said. A groan echoed from the hallway. They froze. A zombie crawled into the room. Ordinary. No wires, no glow. It dragged itself toward them, moaning. Phase 1. Still active, Sue muttered. Crumb lied. Peter helped Joe lift her. Doesn't matter. We're getting out. The bunker trembled. Concrete cracked. Self-destruct? Joe said. Yep, Peter said. Classic villain failsafe. They stumbled into the elevator, the doors closing just as the ceiling collapsed. Where now? Sue mumbled, her eyes fluttering. Hospital, Joe said. We'll fix you. She laughed weakly. With what? TCP key? The elevator doors opened to chaos. The Argos car park was overrun. Zombies everywhere, the helicopter circling uselessly. Back to the pub, Sue said. I've got supplies. They fought through the horde, Sue fading in and out of consciousness. By the time they reached the White Hart, her skin was cold, her pulse thready. Joe laid her on the bar. Stay with me, Sue. Stay. Peter rummaged behind the counter. First aid kit, antiseptic, vodka? For her, not you, Joe snapped. Sue gripped his hand. Her fingers left black smudges. Joe, listen. Don't talk. Listen. She coughed, goo spattering her lips. If I turn, don't hesitate. He shook his head. You won't. Promise me. No. Promise. Joe's vision blurred. I promise. She smiled faintly. Should have asked me out, years ago. Her hand went limp. Sue? Sue. Peter pulled him back. Joe. Look. The black veins receded. Sue's chest rose, once, twice, and her eyes flew open. Glowing green.
Chapter 5. Glowing Pains and Radioactive Brains.
Sue's eyes burned like neon road signs. Joe stumbled back, nearly tripping over a zombie's severed arm. Sue! She sat up slowly, movement stiff and mechanical. The black veins had vanished, but her pupils were ringed with flickering green light. When she spoke, her voice was hers mostly, but layered with a static hum. I feel weird. Peter aimed his source gun at her. Define weird, like I want to eat your face weird or I can suddenly do algebra weird. Sue flexed her fingers. A nearby beer bottle shattered. More like I can break you in half weird. Joe inched closer. Are you? Depends. She hopped off the bar, landing with unnatural grace. Did I ever tell you your breath smells like Doritos? Peter lowered the gun. Yep, that's Sue. They barricaded themselves in the pub's stockroom, surrounded by crates of stale crisps and Sue's emergency tequila. Peter rigged UV lights around the door. Zombies hated UV, apparently, while Joe watched Sue pace. How much do you remember? He asked. Everything, she said, including you crying like a toddler when I died. Joe flushed. I didn't cry. You wept. Big difference. She paused, staring at her reflection in a keg. The goo's still in me, I can feel it, like ants under my skin. But I'm in control. For now. Peter tossed her a bag of pork scratchings. Any cool powers, laser eyes, teleportation? She crushed the bag in her fist without touching it. The snacks inside turned to dust. Super strength, enhanced hearing, and I can sense them. She nodded to the boarded windows. The zombies, it's like a pulse. Joe's chest tightened. Can they sense you? Dunno, let's not find out. A helicopter thundered overhead. The loudspeaker blared, Aylesbury survivors evacuate immediately. Quarantine breach detected. Breach? Peter peeked through the boards. You mean the part where everything's on fire? Joe grabbed Sue's arm. We need to move. If the government's bombing the place. She yanked free. Don't touch me. He recoiled. Sorry, I'm not glass, Joe, but I'm not safe either. She shoved a crate aside, revealing a hidden trapdoor. There's tunnels under the pub. Leads to the old canal. We can follow it out of town. Peter raised an eyebrow. Since when do you have tunnels? Since the 1800s. Smugglers. Now shut up and move. The tunnels reeked of damp and decay. Sue took point, her glowing eyes casting an eerie light. Joe noticed she didn't blink. You're staring, she said. I'm not. Liar. Peter lagged behind, fiddling with a zombie's severed hand. This one's got a Fitbit, heart rate 0. Finally, a workout plan I can stick to. Joe ignored him. Sue, what happens if, I turn full zombie? She didn't look back. You do what you promised. I'm not killing you. You will. The tunnel shuddered. Distant screeches echoed. They're in here, Sue whispered. A pack of Phase 1 zombies rounded the corner, moaning. Sue raised a hand, the air rippled, and the zombies froze mid-lunge. Whoa, Peter said. Jedi Sue. Sweat beaded on her brow. Can't hold them. Long. Run. They sprinted, Sue's power flickering. The zombies broke free, giving chase. Left, Sue barked, veering into a narrower passage. Joe's shoulder scraped the wall, drawing blood. You okay? Sue asked, not slowing. Peachy. Good, keep up. They burst into a cavernous drain, moonlight filtering through a grate overhead. A ladder led to the surface. Up, Sue said. What about them? Joe pointed to the zombies clambering behind them. Sue clenched her fist. The tunnel ceiling collapsed, burying the horde. She sagged against the wall, green eyes dimming. Sue? Joe reached for her. Don't, she snapped. I'm fine. Peter scaled the ladder. Oi, we're near the canal, and, Joe, bring a mop. The canal was a floating graveyard. Abandoned narrowboats listed in the water, their hulls smeared with black goo. On the bank, a makeshift market stall had been ransacked, cans of beans rolling in the mud. And in the center of it all, a single intact speedboat with Crumb Industries emblazoned on the side. Jackpot, Peter said. Joe helped Sue into the boat. Her skin was fever hot. We need a doctor. We need a miracle, she muttered. Peter hotwired the engine. Where to? London, Manchester, Disneyland, Paris. Anywhere with fewer zombies, Joe said. The engine roared to life. As they sped down the canal, Sue gripped the railing, her knuckles white. Joe, she said quietly, if I turn, don't let me hurt anyone. He didn't answer. They docked near an abandoned petrol station. Inside, Peter scavenged snacks while Sue scoped the perimeter. Joe found a radio behind the counter. Hello? Anyone out there? Static. Then. Repeat. This is Doctor. Eliza Mould of the London Containment Zone. The Lazarus compound is airborne. Phase 2 is imminent. Survivors, avoid major cities. The goo is mutating. I repeat. The transmission died. Peter! Joe yelled. Get in here! They huddled around the radio. Peter replayed the message. Doctor. Mould, Sue said. Sounds like a Bond villain. She's real, Peter said. Saw her on the dark web. Ex-government virologist. Got fired for ethical breaches. Joe frowned. Ethical breaches? She tried to weaponize yogurt. Sue leaned in. If she's in London, she might know how to cure this. She touched her glowing eyes. Or she's using the goo, Joe said. Peter Googled furiously. London's overrun, but there's a lab in Canary Wharf. Mould's old stomping ground. If anyone has answers, it's there. Sue stood. Then that's where we're going. Hold on, Joe said. London's a death trap. And I'm a time bomb. She tossed him the car keys. Your choice. Die here or die there. I pick there. They found a working van behind the station. Sue claimed shotgun, her glow casting shadows on the dashboard. Peter snored in the back, cuddling a zombie's Fitbit. Joe gripped the wheel. You're not a bomb, Sue. Aren't I? She stared at the road. I can feel it. Learning. Adapting. What happens when it doesn't need me anymore? We'll fix it. You don't know that. I believe we will. She laughed bitterly. Since when are you an optimist? Since you didn't eat my face. Silence. Then, I'm scared, Joe. He reached for her hand. She let him take it. Her skin buzzed, like holding a live wire. Me too, he said. Headlights pierced the dark. A military convoy sped past, ignoring them. They're not stopping, Sue said. Would you? A sign flashed by. London, 50 miles. Sue squeezed his hand. Whatever happens, thanks for not giving up. Joe's throat tightened. Always. Behind them, Peter Sleep mumbled, Goo, giant goo badger. Sue smirked. We're all gonna die. Probably. They drove into the dawn.
Chapter 6, London Calling, and so are the undead.
The M25 was a car park. Not the usual kind, crammed with commuters and existential dread, but a literal car park. Abandoned vehicles strewn like toys, engines smoking, doors hanging open. Joe swerved the van around an overturned Tesco lorry, its cargo of baked beans spilled across the asphalt like a pulse salsa. London's looking festive, Sue said, her green eyes scanning the horizon. The Shard loomed in the distance, its glass facade cracked, a zombie in a business suit dangling from the 50th floor like a macabre window cleaner. Peter leaned forward, clutching his zombie-gone mist sprayer. A repurposed Febreze bottle filled with vinegar and glitter. According to GPS, Canary Wharf's 10 miles east, assuming we don't die horribly. Optimist, Joe muttered. A zombie in a I Love London hoodie lunged at the van. Sue flicked her wrist. The zombie froze mid-snarl, twitched, then politely sat on the curb. Show off, Joe said. Sue wiped blood from her nose. It's getting harder. The goo's fighting me. Peter tossed her a jammy Dodger. Carbs, for focus. I'm not a bloody Tamagotchi. They ditched the van near Tower Bridge, now decorated with zombie street performers. One mimed trapped in a box while gnawing on a tourist's femur. Charming, Joe said. Let's stick to the sewers. Again, Peter groaned. I still smell like rat wee. Sue kicked open a manhole. Complain again, and I'll leave you as a bridesmaid. The tunnels beneath London were worse than Aylesbury's, wider, scarier, and inexplicably labelled with graffiti like Mind the Gaping Maw of Doom. They followed Peter's phone flashlight, the beam bouncing off walls slick with black goo. So, Joe said, stepping over a skeletal tube worker still clutching the big issue. This Dr. Moldavian, what's her deal? Genius, billionaire, total nutter, Peter said. Rumour is she spliced the Lazarus goo with AI, called it Darwin 2.0. Sue paused. AI? So the zombies could learn? Yep, hence phase 2. They're not just biting, they're upgrading. As if on cue, a screech echoed ahead. A pack of zombies crawled toward them. Not on all fours, but vertically, spider-like, along the walls and ceiling. Their eyes glowed green. Oh, that's new, Joe said. Sue raised her hands. The air rippled. The spiders froze. Run! Now! They sprinted, the tunnel shaking as Sue's hold snapped. The horde gave chase, skittering like cockroaches. Left! Peter yelled, ducking into a side passage. Joe tripped over a discarded pret-a-manger bag, sending a rogue almond croissant flying. Priorities! Sue yelled, hauling him up. They burst into an abandoned underground station. Bank, its platforms littered with skeletons and stalled trains. A zombie guard shuffled past, shouting, Stand clear of the closing doors! Through a mouthful of moss. Peter pointed to a map. Canary Wharf's 2 stops east, but the tracks are flooded. Joe eyed a maintenance trolley. Buckle up, losers! The trolley careened down the tracks, sparks flying. Sue clung to the front, using her powers to shove debris aside. Zombies dove at them, only to be smeared into paste by the speed. This is awesome, Peter whooped, filming with his GoPro. This is insane, Joe white-knuckled the trolley. They hit a curve. The trolley launched airborne, crashed through a Mind the Gap sign, and skidded into Canary Wharf station. Sue staggered off, glowing eyes dimming. Never again. Joe gaped. The financial district was a war zone. Zombies in shredded suits dragged briefcases of guts. A severed stock ticker scroll read, 666, hell is bearish. Labs in 1 Canada Square, Peter said. The tall one with the goo waterfall. The skyscraper's glass exterior was now a cascading sludge of black goo, oozing from broken windows. At the base, a makeshift barricade of desks and computer monitors trembled under zombie assault. Plan? Joe asked. Sue cracked her knuckles. Kick the door down! The lobby was a graveyard of tech bros and broken dreams. Sue ripped a zombie's arm off, still holding a frappuccino, and lobbed it into the crowd. Floor 42. Peter jabbed the elevator button. The doors opened. Inside stood a zombie in a lab coat holding a clipboard. Zombie scientist. Grr performance review. Sue kicked it into the wall. You're fired. The elevator ascended. Muzak played Don't Stop Believin'. Subtle, Joe said. The doors dinged open. Lab 42 was a neon-lit nightmare. Growling containment cells, holograms of mutating goo, and a life-size statue of Dr. Mold made entirely of jello. She's here, Peter whispered. Dr. Eliza Mold swiveled in her chair, grinning like a Bond villain who'd swallowed a bee. She wore a white coat, blood-red gloves, and a necklace of USB drives. Welcome, test subjects, she said. I've been ever so lonely. Sue surged forward, but collapsed, clutching her head. The goo veins returned, pulsing angrily. Mold tutted. I'd stay still if I were you. Your little parasite responds to my commands. She waved a remote. Say hello to Darwin 3.0. A containment cell hissed open. Inside lurked a zombie. Sue's height, her face, her leather jacket. Meet your replacement, Mold said. Faster, smarter, obedient. Sue's clone snarled, green eyes blazing. Joe stepped in front of Sue. Like hell. Mold pressed a button. The clone lunged.
Chapter 7. Clone Alone with Extra Cheese.
The clone moved like Sue, same smirk, same lethal grace, but its eyes were hollow, hungry. It lunged, fists crackling with green energy. Duck! Sue shoved Joe aside, taking the hit square in the chest. She skidded across the lab, crashing into Dr. Mold's jello statue. Raspberry-flavored entrails splattered the walls. That's hygienic, Peter said, diving behind a desk. Joe grabbed a fire extinguisher. How do we kill it? Aim for the glowy bit, Sue wheezed, dodging another strike. The clone's chest pulsed with a glowing green core, a twisted mirror of Sue's own infection. Dr. Mold watched from her control panel, sipping a martini. Darling, you're outclassed. She's you, minus the emotional baggage. And the bad haircut, the clone hissed. Sue froze. Did it just roast me? Yep, Joe said. You're officially a meme. The clone cornered Sue near a row of containment cells. Behind the glass, mutated zombies pressed their faces against the panes, cheering like rugby hooligans. You're obsolete, the clone sneered. I'm Sue 2.0, faster, stronger, better at parallel parking. Sue wiped blood from her lip. But can you do this? She slammed her palm on a lab console. Overhead sprinklers burst to life, dousing the clone in liquid nitrogen. Cooling off period, Sue yelled. The clone froze mid-snarl, shattering into gooey chunks. Dr. Mold clapped slowly. Bravo! But Darwin 3.0 learns... The goo shards quivered, reforming into 2 clones. Oh, you've got to be joking, Joe said. Peter tossed Sue a plasma cutter. Merry Christmas. Where'd you get this? Mold's snack drawer. The clones attacked. Sue sliced one in half, but the pieces regenerated into 4. They're multiplying like bloody tribbles, Peter said. Joe swung the extinguisher. I don't know what that means. Star Trek. Not helping. Dr. Mold sighed. Must you be so noisy? I'm trying to orchestrate an apocalypse. Orchestrate this! Sue hurled a clone into Mold's control panel. Sparks flew. Alarms blared. System override. Self-destruct initiated. Oops, Sue said. The lab shook. Ceiling tiles crashed down as the group bolted for the elevator. Stairs! Joe yelled. Too slow. Peter hacked a keypad. Service lift goes to the roof. Why the roof? Joe said. Helipad, obviously. Since when is there a helipad? Since now. The doors closed as clones oozed under them. Joe stomped on a creeping tendril. Nope, nope, nope. Sue slumped against the wall, her veins glowing violently. The goo, it's reacting to them. Peter frowned. Like Wi-Fi interference. Like agony. The elevator lurched, stopped. Uh-oh, Peter said. Uh-oh, Joe said. We're stuck. Stuck? Relax, I've got a backup plan. Peter pulled out a Walkman. How is that a plan? He pressed play. Never gonna give you up, blared. The clones outside screeched, clawing their ears. They hate Rick Astley, Peter said. Everyone hates Rick Astley, Sue said. The elevator jolted upward. The helipad was a wind-swept nightmare, a lone chopper spinning its blades. A banner on the tail read, Crumb Industries, tomorrow's doom, today. Dr. Mold stood by the hatch, clutching a briefcase of glowing goo vials. Leaving so soon, but the fun's just beginning. Fun, Joe snapped. You turned London into a Call of Duty map. Correction, I improved it. Darwin 3.0 will rewrite humanity. No more weakness, no more Maeve pizza delivery drivers. Sue lunged, but her legs buckled. The clones oozed onto the roof, merging into a towering Sioux mountain. Pathetic, Mold said. You can't even save yourselves. Peter aimed his plasma cutter. But we can inconvenience you. He fired, severing the chopper's fuel line. Mold shrieked as petrol soaked her lab coat. Joe flicked a match. Smoking kills. He tossed it. The explosion blew Mold off the roof. Her scream faded into the abyss. The Sioux mountain roared, collapsing into a goo puddle. Quick! Peter dragged Sue toward the chopper. Before it reforms! Joe yanked the pilot's corpse from the cockpit. Who's flying this thing? Me, Peter said. Since when can you fly? Since Microsoft Flight Simulator. The engine sputtered. They lifted off as the roof collapsed, clones howling below. London burned beneath them. Sue lay across the back seat, trembling. Joe knelt beside her. Talk to me. It's everywhere, she whispered. The goo, in my head. It's singing. Singing? Never gonna give you up. Peter chuckled. That's the Walkman. He tossed it out the window. Sue managed a smile. Thanks. Joe gripped her hand. We'll fix this. How? Dunno, but we've got resourcefulness and Peter's glitter bombs. Glitter bombs, she repeated. My hero. The chopper lurched. A slight problem, Peter said. Fuel's low, we're crashing. Crashing? Joe said. Controlled crashing. Into the Thames. That's just crashing, Sue pointed. There, the London Eye. The Ferris wheel stood miraculously intact, pods swaying. Peter aimed for the riverbank. Hold on! The chopper belly flopped into the mud. They tumbled out, gasping. Sue stared at the sinking chopper. Well, that happened. A groan echoed. Dr. Mold emerged from the reeds, half-burned, briefcase still in hand. You think you've won? She slurred. The goo is airborne now. Phase 2. Global. She collapsed. The briefcase popped open, vials rolling into the Thames. Oops, Joe said. Sue's eyes flared green. We need to move. Now. Why? Peter said. The water bubbled. Something massive stirred beneath the surface. "Oh," Joe said. "That's why."
Chapter 8. Thames of Terror and a Splash of Lime.
The Thames bubbled like a cauldron of toxic soup. Joe, Sue, and Peter stood ankle-deep in sludge, staring as the river churned. A gargantuan shape rose, a towering mass of black goo, fused with shopping trolleys, zombie limbs, and the entire front half of a Routemaster bus. Its face was a mangled bike rack, snarling with chain-link teeth. "Well," Joe said, "that's the most London thing I've ever seen." The monster roared, spraying goo that melted a nearby I London souvenir kiosk into a puddle of irony. Sue's eyes flickered green. "I can feel it. It's angry, hungry, really hates yoga pants." Peter adjusted his rubber chicken helmet. Relatable. The monster lurched toward them, each step shaking the ground. A zombie seagull perched on its shoulder squawked, "Park life!" "Split up!" Sue yelled, diving left as a goo tentacle smashed the spot where she'd stood. Joe sprinted right, dodging a flying traffic cone. "Any bright ideas, Pete?" Peter rummaged through his backpack. "I've got glow sticks and a kazoo." A kazoo? For distractions. Peter tooted a shaky rendition of God Save the King. The monster paused, tilting its head. "It's working," Peter said. Then it swatted him into a pile of soggy crisps. Or not. Sue vaulted onto a red phone box, because, of course, her veins glowing like radioactive licorice. "Hey, ugly, catch!" She hurled a parking meter at the monster's head. It staggered, dislodging a zombie cyclist still clipped into its Brompton. "Nice shot," Joe said. "Run!" Sue collapsed, clutching her arm. The black veins had spread to her neck. Joe dragged her behind a Pret-a-Manger dumpster. "You're burning up." "The goo's talking to me," she panted. "It wants to merge." "Merge? Like a corporate team-building exercise. Like assimilate." She gripped his jacket. "If I turn, don't let it take me." The dumpster rattled. The monster's gooey fist slammed down, crushing the dumpster into a metal pancake. Joe and Sue rolled clear, skidding into the open. The monster loomed, dripping. "Plan C!" Peter yelled, limping over with a shopping trolley full of fireworks. "Improvised explosives." "You're mad," Joe said. "Mad genius." They lit the fuses, lobbing rockets into the monster's gooey maw. Boom! 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 The kaiju burped rainbow sparks, momentarily confused. "Did we win?" Joe said. The monster regurgitated a firework. It shot past Peter's ear, detonating a statue of a disgraced monarch. "Nope!" Sue staggered to her feet. "There's a core inside it. Feels like we destroy that. We kill it." "How?" Joe said. She smiled grimly. "I'll do a Kool-Aid man." Before anyone could stop her, Sue charged, leaping into the monster's chest. It swallowed her whole. "Sue!" Joe screamed. The monster convulsed. Green light pulsed inside it. "She's hacking it," Peter said. "Or dying." Sue swam through the goo, visions assaulting her. A laboratory Dr. Mold, laughing. "You're the key, Susan." Joe, infected, eyes glowing. Aylesbury, overrun by smarter zombies, their teeth spelling welcome in Morse code. She fought toward the core, a glowing green orb fused with a Boris bike. "Mine!" the goo hissed in her mind. "Piss off!" Sue hissed back. She punched the core. It cracked. The world exploded. Joe and Peter shielded their eyes as the kaiju burst, raining goo and garbage. Sue tumbled out, coughing up black sludge. "You idiot," Joe said, catching her. She grinned weakly. Worked, though. The Thames bubbled harmlessly. The seagull zombie waddled away, muttering, "Brexit means Brexit." Peter kicked a goo chunk. "So, we won?" Sue's phone buzzed, a dark web alert. Phase 3. Goo is airborne. Global outbreak imminent. Nope, she said. In Mold's briefcase, miraculously intact, they found a USB labeled Antidote LOL ID CAS. Peter plugged it in. Files revealed a lab in the Scottish Highlands, a former bunker, now Mold's Plan B. Road trip, Peter said. Road trip, Joe said. We're wanted, Sue's half zombie, and Scotland hates us. Sue stood, swaying. Got a better idea? A roar echoed in the distance. Another kaiju, this one shaped like the London Eye. Nope, Joe said. Road trip.